This is how we use our current spending habits to cut costs. At the end of the last video, the assignment was to pull all of your last month's or 1 month period for spend and income data by category and put it into one file like this. These were the categories that we talked about, and so in pulling them out, what I did is I had like a personal account, a business account, a business card, and a personal card, and I took all of that information and compiled it into this one big file. Now, the columns are going to be different, so you're going to have to play with each one of them because the formats are going to be unique. You want the date, the item, the credit cards are going to give you a category, so that can be helpful in some areas, and then my category, which again is based on those ones that we set up last time, and then the amount. Now, in doing this exercise, I did make a couple changes to the categories. I looked through and I had like cologne was one item. So I created a category called health and looks that I've been using. Also, it's more than just fuel. You may have repair costs, vehicle registration, and parking were a couple I noticed. So I just created a category called auto instead of fuel. And then I had a few unknowns in there as well. And again, these are my categories that I'm using as an example to give you ideas. Each person is going to have their own categories that make sense. You just have to think about how to best lay these out so that you can think about different areas where you can reduce your spending and make an improved budget. And the categories can be modified over time. You can see I've already gone from the categories that I first started with in the initial exercise, and I've already modified them a little bit for this next step. Each of you will have your own income items. I just removed mine from this because I want to focus on how to cut cost. If you have your own business, let's say, then you may focus more on how to increase your revenue based on efforts that you put into that, marketing, whatever else. That's a completely separate topic. Most people have a standard paycheck that they get or a predicted amount. So I'm going to focus here on how we can look at cost for improvement. Now, I'm doing a tab for each step of the way just because it's easier for showing you guys in this video. But for example, I went from money 2, where I had all the categories that we just talked about. And now on this next one, what I've done is I just took all the data, and instead of going by date like I had the last tab, now what I've done is grouped it by my category. And what that allows me to do is very easily add up and see what is my monthly spend for that category and what is my weekly spend for it, because sometimes it's easier to think in terms of by month, and sometimes it's easier to think of how much do I want to spend per week, such as going out money or groceries, things like that. Now with all this data, we want to start thinking about what could we cut, right? The whole point of this exercise is to pull out unneeded expenses so that we have more to do fun stuff we like. As you go through each of them as an individual cost first, then you can start looking at it and saying, do I really need this? For example, here's one, HP Instant Ink. I was spending $7.50 a month, really never used it, and so it was a complete waste of money. So I've since then canceled the HP Instant Ink. Side note, if you do that, they actually disable the printer cartridges that you've already bought in your printer just because you've stopped paying their subscription fee. So now I have to go figure out how to get new cartridges that don't require their subscription fee to activate, which I thought is a horrible way to conduct themselves as a business. That's right, that's HP. Thank you very much for nothing. Thanks for nothing, Danny. Other things going through here, vehicle registration is kind of important, things like gas, individual costs, but in going through this kind of activity, and I'd been doing this for a couple months already, so one of the things that I'd noticed going through this was I was paying a premium membership for dating apps. And I looked at what it cost me, and if you recall back a couple months ago or so, I did a video on making the decision to stop dating apps, delete them, and as part of that, that was connected to this exercise of realizing what I'm spending and asking myself, am I really getting that much benefit? Well, the answer is no. So I deleted them as well. I also looked at the Disney Channel, was something that I'd been paying for monthly, and I hadn't watched it in probably 6 months. I think I started it just for The Mandalorian or something, and then I didn't watch it again. So I deleted that. I'm also looking at Netflix. Do I really need Netflix? I have Amazon Prime. Yes, they have some different shows, but if you're not careful, you end up subscribing to all these channels that you might watch once a month if you're lucky. So each of these decisions, thinking back to our decision-making process, each of these items we should be saying, do we really need that? Okay, a lot of it is not need, it's just a want. But even in the want section, do you really want it? In other words, is it really worth whatever emotional benefit to having that it costs you every month? And the nickels add up to dollars. So just because you're like, it's only $5, it's only $10, well, those things all add up. And if you want to make any kind of significant improvement, you have to look at all these different things. This is also a time that you might look at something like, say, car insurance. You might say, do I really need to be paying that much for car insurance? Maybe you have a car that's just not worth a whole lot, and you kind of look at it as if you were to wreck it. Would you really want to repair it and drive it, or would you just scrap it? And in that case, you might as well drop your insurance to liability only. In addition to those individual items I mentioned, we also have a chance here to look at the bigger categories, such as with auto, it's sometimes less flexible. We need gas, we need to keep the car running to get where we need to go, whether it's work, the store, whatever it is. But you may have some flexibility in that because maybe you just like to go for a drive up the back roads like I like to do. So there could be some opportunity for that. Gas is also a cost that changes with the market, so we have less control over that. Groceries may have a bit more flexibility. We do need to eat, but there's a big difference from what do I need to eat that's the calories I need and healthy versus what am I actually buying. So if you think through, and it's not something you're gonna pull out of one receipt from HEB for $100, you're not gonna figure out what you can and can't cut out of that. But if you wanna really trim down, that's where you can take that receipt and start looking through and saying, well, do I really need that? Do I really need that? If you're spending $50 a month on produce that ends up just going sour in your fridge anyway, why bother? It's just throwing money. So either start eating the produce or quit buying it. So we probably need fuel to go places, we need food to eat. Entertainment is one of the easiest places to cut because I could easily say that everything in the entertainment category, if I just didn't do that for a month, I would be fine, the house would be fine, the cars would be fine, the dog would be fine. There's nothing that's really going to suffer if I don't do anything for entertainment in a month. Now, that said, the point to all this is to have more resources to enjoy our lives as much as we can. So we want to do some entertainment, but it's an easy category to pull back. And when we look through the entertainment, we can look at it and say, do I really need to spend that much? When I first got out of college and I was keeping track of my spend, and a year later I looked at it and realized I'd been spending about $1,400 a month just going out to bars. So obviously that was later than it should have been to realize that snafu. But the point is, by having data to look back at, you can realize, oh, I'm spending way too much on this category and I need to cut back. The whole point of this is give us the data to make us aware of where we can make changes. So what do we do with all this information next? Let's say we've already gone through and we've identified the monthly bills and expenses that we don't really need and we can remove, canceling subscriptions, whatever it may be. And now we are in a position where we can create an improved budget. So we want to take the spend process that we've already done for past data, and we want to look at how to make a better version of that moving forward. If you haven't done so, please click the link below to subscribe, check out the YCC merch store, see if there's anything you like, and let's use casual sense.